are sitting here at the South Pasadena Library with Jason Turbow. Yes, it's Turbo time here. I'm sure you got plenty of that. I'm sorry I ruined your childhood just now. But he wrote this lovely book, They Bled Blue, about the 81 championship Dodgers and that whole season, which was just filled with, I'd say, a lot of turmoil for all of baseball. And of course, I'm very prepared with my 88 shirt on, which was not planned, but thanks for taking some time to hang out with us here. And
great to be here. Some would call it turmoil, some would call it intrigue.
See, this is why he's a writer, and I just make funny noises on the TV. What was it like putting a book like this together?
What was it like? It was I mean, any time you put a book together, it's interesting. But when you put a book together about a really interesting group of guys, it's especially interesting. And you've got outsized characters like Tommy Lasorda, and outsized stories like Fernando Valenzuela.
Yes.
And you crazy season stories like the strike.
Yeah.
And then comeback tales in the postseason. It all adds up to one very interesting process.
Yeah, plus finally the Dodgers have their championship, and that record-setting infield is able to get their ship. They're able to finally beat the damn Yankees, so it was a lot of great things for LA and Tommy's first World Series win, of course. But one of the subtitles of your book is the weirdest championship baseball had ever seen. Could you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
The crux of that is the strike. Right? It was the first mid-season strike in baseball history.
Mm-hmm.
It wiped 50 days off the schedule. And baseball didn't know how to handle it. Like, what do you do with a schedule interrupted? Do you continue, when play resumes, do you continue as if nothing had ever happened? Mm-hmm. Well, that would lead to wildly imbalanced schedules. What they ended up doing was crowning first half champions and second half champions. Also wildly imbalanced, but it was the best thing could come up with. It really worked well for the Dodgers.
Oh yeah,
because LA had started so hot and built such a sizable lead early on that when they inevitably backslid, which they did, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. Right? They had a 6.5 game divisional lead going into June, more or less, lost about a game a day right before the strike.
Ooh.
Cincinnati had pulled to within 1/2 a game of the Dodgers. It's not unreasonable to think that if the strike had occurred one day later, the Dodgers would have coughed up first place.
Oof.
Right? The Reds were 7-0 going into that. It was almost destiny, right? And so when they decided to do a split season, the Dodgers were cemented in.
Yeah.
Right? They knew in early August, as soon as play resumed, hey, we're in the playoffs. And lots of players made noise about, we're not going to take our foot off the gas. We're going to keep trying hard. We're professionals, of course. But at that point, the question isn't, are you going to try hard or not? It's, are you going to preserve yourself for the baseball that matters?
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to dive for every ball versus make sure you're healthy when the playoffs start? And even Tommy Lasorda started managing with an eye toward the playoffs, giving pitchers longer rests and starting, rookies when he wouldn't have otherwise. Mm-hmm. I mean, Rick Sutcliffe, the 1979 Rookie of the Year, was disgruntled because down that stretch run, Tommy was giving starts to guys like Ted Power and Dave Goltz, who had been banished to the bullpen. He got a start, and Sutcliffe wasn't starting. So that was kind of the end of his run with Los Angeles. But a lot of people were getting playing time that wouldn't have otherwise because the Dodgers were in the playoffs very early.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough way to manage a team, manage a season, knowing all right, we have an entire second half of sort of pretend baseball. Let's just go through it. I mean, I guess there's a lot of San Diego Padres go through it just about every season.
Entire season's full of sort of pretend baseball.
Yeah, exactly. The recent vintage Reds, of course. So with so many great players on this team, of course, again, like I already mentioned, the record-setting infield finally getting their championship, all the other narratives going on with baseball and all that. What about this team in particular made the 81 season so special?
Well, the biggest story of the year was Fernando Valenzuela.
Fernandomania.
Right? He came almost literally out of nowhere. Beginning of the 81 season, Don Sutton, Dodger stalwart for 15 years, had just gone to Houston as a free agent. Mm-hmm. Jerry Royce was ready to step into his opening day slot, hurt his calf the day before opening day. Bert Hooton, thinking he had another day, had surgery on an ingrown toenail. Bob Welch had bone spurs in his elbow that only ended up costing him about a week, but he couldn't pitch.
Yeah.
Sutcliffe and Goltz had just pitched the Freeway Series, the spring training closing games against the Angels. That left Fernando Valenzuela to become the first rookie in the 98-year history of the Dodgers to start on opening day. He had never started a major league game before.
Yeah.
All right, he pitched 17 innings out of the bullpen as a September call-up, and that was it. And what does he do? He goes out and shuts out the Houston Astros. All right. His next game is another complete game, gives up 1 run. His next game is another shutout. His next game is another shutout. His next game is another shutout. And also, by the time he won that 5th game, he went 3 for 4 to bring his season batting average to 438. There was nothing this guy couldn't do. And by the end of 8 starts, he was 8-0. He'd tossed 9 innings in every single start.
Yep.
He'd given up 4 runs total in 72 innings. His ERA was 0.5. He'd thrown 5 shutouts. And LA and kind of the nation was crazy for him. And that was obviously important for what it did for the Dodgers on the field.
Absolutely.
But for this franchise, it was really even more important for what it did for the Dodgers off the field. And that's because Dodger Stadium is located in Chavez Ravine. And Chavez Ravine, before the Dodgers came to town, was home to a very vibrant Mexican community, thousands strong. Mm-hmm. And in the late 1940s and early 1950s, that community was displaced in the name of a public housing project. Mm-hmm. The Los Angeles mayor, Fletcher Bowron, wanted to build public housing. And he offered first shot at the new units to all the residents in exchange for them selling their land at probably below market rates.
Oh, yeah.
And they knew it for what it was. They were going to be evicted anyway, so most people took him up on the offer. Trouble was, before ground could be broken, he lost the election to a Republican who was riding the McCarthyist wave of the era, branded subsidized housing as a socialist plot, scuttled the project entirely. These people suddenly had no homes, and the city had a bunch of vacant land and not much to do with it, which is when Walter O'Malley decided to move his team to Los Angeles. Right? So their final season in Brooklyn, the Dodgers sold about 1 million tickets. Their first 4 years in LA, they about doubled that while playing at the LA Coliseum. Right? When Dodger Stadium opened in 1962, they blew the previous marks out of the water. They sold 2.75 million tickets, new major league record, which they bettered almost annually thereafter.
Of course.
And the only people who didn't seem to care about coming to watch the Dodgers play baseball were the local Mexicans. And that's significant because there was a higher concentration of Mexicans in Los Angeles County than anywhere in the world outside of Mexico City. And the Dodgers knew it. They knew there were all these people just there for the plucking. Al Campanis, the storied general manager, said repeatedly he wanted to find a Mexican Sandy Koufax. Somebody to activate Mexicans the way that Koufax had activated Jews. And he couldn't do it. Like, all the Mexicans they trotted out there just weren't very good at baseball.
Yeah.
Until Fernando came along.
And Fernando was just the easiest way to call it, is a game changer in just so many ways. And now, he's still around the organization, and he's still the most, I would say, the most legendary unretired number and player for the organization. Yeah,
and to this day, the Mexican fan base among the Dodgers is one of their strongest blocks, right? They came on board almost like that with Fernando, and they never went away.
Fernandomania was very contagious, we'll tell you that. So Fernandomania, again, is a key point to this 81 season, but you said Tommy Lasorda is kind of ultimately the star of this book. Is there a particular moment that kind of solidified that for you?
Well,
you could tell. Tommy's a star.
There's a lot of Tommy moments. He was so made for this job. Right? He
put that in your LinkedIn, Tommy.
Made for the job I had. He pitched for the Dodgers almost all in the minor leagues for more than a decade. He was a minor league manager for the Dodgers for 8 years. He said repeatedly how this is the only organization he ever loved. And he was the game's biggest cheerleader on the field as a minor league manager. Yeah. The rah-rah attitude, the hug players after home runs, the bleed Dodger blue.
Which was not a style at all at the time.
No, great Dodger in the sky, right? It all happened then, and people kind of dismissed it. This is minor league stuff. That would never play in the big leagues. Well, Tommy made the big leagues as Walter Alston's third base coach, kept it right up. was so vocal from that coaching box, he drew more attention as a coach than Alston did as manager.
Yeah.
He got significantly more ink. And people said, fine, you're a coach. That'll never play when you become manager if you become manager. He became manager, and sure enough, it played. Right? His outsized personality was perfect for his time and place, and one of the reasons for that is that the guys who were so instrumental to his success, Garvey, Lopes, Russell, Say, Yeager, all came up through the minor leagues with Tommy Lasorda.
Yep.
They knew what they were getting as soon as he got into that manager's office, and they knew how to put it into context. Not all of them loved it, but they all understood it. And that helped him build all the credibility he needed, and went to the World Series his first 2 years as manager.
Yeah,
that's pretty good success.
I mean, everything was kind of already set in place, but he was just a different, very, very different voice for that team, and it worked. It absolutely worked. The star, Tommy Lasorda. We got some of his wine too. You guys should have some. But
here, what?
Actually, it's down the street. But moving on to you, what made you want to write this book? And I mean, just speaking to you, it sounds like you are, but are you a Dodger fan?
Born and raised in the Bay Area, lifelong Giants fan.
We're just going to wrap up now.
I remember this team as a kid. I was 11 years old in 1981, and I loved to go and boo the Dodgers. Loved it. I mean, you're probably too young to remember Candlestick Park.
Oh, yeah.
But it was kind of this unique stadium where the visitors' dugout was not connected to the clubhouse via a tunnel. Players had to walk across the field to get to their dugout.
Messed up. And,
that would be the chance for the Giants fans to unload. And the best part, I mean, as an 11-year-old, I loved it because Tommy soaked it up. He blew kisses every step of the way. He was riding those fans for all he could. And even as a kid, I could see it. I mean, I loved to boo him, but I also loved him. That's what made it so much fun. Right? The guy was genuine.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned about this team at large as I researched it. They were all genuine. There was very little fronting on this team. Yeah. No one tried to hide who they were. Steve Garvey, Mr. All-American, hug the nuns and kiss the babies and stay after and sign every autograph. A lot of people think that was an act, but it wasn't. That's who he was, right? Davey Lopes, cranky second baseman. Ron Say, cranky third baseman. They didn't try to hide it. That's who they were, and they made it work for them.
Who, out of everybody you had a chance to talk to, interview, and all that, who would you say you were just blown away? Your most favorite interview putting this together?
The first interview I did for this was with Jerry Royce, who I had not interviewed before. And he, he can string a sentence together. He's a broadcaster, so that helps. But he has such great stories, and
he's been through a lot.
And he has a good memory. That helps a lot. And he was very willing and open. That's the key part. I mean, many of these guys, in talking to them, not that they weren't open, but they either still work for the team or they still live in Los Angeles and show up at the ballpark pretty frequently.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's not a lot of motivation to kind of air dirty laundry from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for that. But Royce was, not that he was airing dirty laundry, but he helped me understand how things were. And my job as a journalist is to tell as true a story as I can. And the more open guys are, the better I can do that. And Royce was terrific. Dusty Baker also was terrific, but I had interviewed him many times when he was with the Giants, so Royce was new to me, and it was really good.
Yeah, and Dusty, another one of those unsung heroes that some people forget because just the overshadowing of the record-setting infield. So many good players from that era, and you had to grow up a Giants fan.
It was dark days then. I was looking at it in context of this book. The Giants went through a 15-year playoff free run, the longest such stretch since the 1800s, which perfectly overlapped my childhood. So I grew up wishing my team was this team.
Yeah, I bet. And now a lot of people get to wish that their team was the current Dodgers, and we're very happy about that. And sure, we have to listen to the Giants, and they're 3-5 and yada yada. But
I'm not saying nothing. But I will say, coming full circle, once again, just aside from winning every single game you play, you've got a wonderfully chubby, kind of otherworldly, junk-balling foreign left-hander who does nothing but win games.
Yeah. Ryu has just been electric. It's great.
Right. And from Fernando to Ryu.
There's always somebody. There's that. Every one of these teams has that person, has that storyline. It just has something about it, and I like that bringing full circle. That's how everybody can be even more happy about this 2019 season. So the most important question we're going to have for this before we let you go is tell the audience, tell people where they can pick this guy up.
Anywhere fine books are sold. Amazon.com, I recommend indiebound.com, which will connect you with your local independent bookseller. So it's important to support those guys. Or any bookstore in your neighborhood. If they don't have it, they can order it.
Yeah, try to support local, but the important thing is get this book because it's a beautiful book. Like we got it, like I said, we did end up getting it earlier today, and she had some fun going through it. She being the person behind the camera. It's all.
There's a reason this image looks so good right now.
Smoke and mirrors, but yeah, we're looking forward to thumbing through it some more and then adding it.
There's two things I love about this. So I gave the first copy I handed out was to Dusty Baker because he lives in the Bay Area, and he immediately opens up and says, "Hey, that's me." That was good. But the back end paper I love with Fernando and Tommy. And then the mariachi guitar and the sombreros. That really just encapsulates 1981. This is toward the end of the year because he's looking very kind of at ease with the celebrity at that point, when for most of the season he was just trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, we're going to proudly display this in the studio. Everybody will see it behind us as we come back on live right now. But Jason Turbow, we really do appreciate the time. Obviously, you got an event coming up real soon here, so we'll let you go snack down a little bit. You have any social media you'd like to plug, or where people can find you?
Baseballcodes.com, Twitter @baseballcodes. My first book was on the unwritten rules of the sport. So I still blog about that at baseballcodes.
Okay.
And so
we need one of those too,
stuff.
actually.
For sure.